Welcome to the Health Fix podcast, where health junkies get their weekly fix of tips, tools, and techniques to have limitless energy, sharp minds, and fit physiques for life. Hey, health junkies. On this episode of the Health Fix podcast, I have a friend of mine, Alicia Ayala, coming on. We met about 6 months ago through something called Business by Design Live, which is a James Wedmore business group that was on fire. And she and I just started talking and realized we had a lot in common, including the Midwest. She's one of the Minnesota gals, and of course I'm in Wisconsin, so it's fun to connect that way. But not only that, she had an interesting perspective on corporate and the balance of corporate life between being a mom, crushing in the corporate world, but not burning yourself out, and really being able to find this great work-life balance, which of course I fully admit that I have struggled with in my life. So Alicia is a transformational life and leadership coach. She's a speaker. She's also a mom of two wonderful gals. She's a former senior director in technology, and she spent 22 years building and leading teams in a Fortune 500 environment, rising to the ranks to senior leaderships. And during her career, she founded Women in Technology, a thriving leadership group designed to empower women to grow, connect, and challenge what's possible. And boy, does she talk about that in this podcast. And we're going to be going through her signature framework called the Inner Leadership Method. And we're going to be giving some really good nuggets here in relation to business, life balance, career, life balance. And also for those of you who don't have children like me, this is relevant. And also for those of you that are juggling taking care of your parents like me and figuring out life and career, this is so relevant for you. I spent so much of my career trying to really figure out who owned the business, that somehow I wasn't the owner, and figuring out how to actually spend time with my family when they really needed it. And it took me some years to do. And folks like Alicia are really helping you to be able to nail this down. And one of the biggest key components is learning about your values. And we're going to dive into that today. So let's introduce you to Alicia Ayala. Hey, health junkies. On this episode of the Health Fix podcast, I have a friend of mine, Alicia Ayala, coming on. We met about 6 months ago through something called Business by Design Live, which is a James Wedmore business group that was on fire. And she and I just started talking and realized we had a lot in common, including the Midwest. She's one of the Minnesota gals, and of course I'm in Wisconsin, so it's fun to connect that way. But not only that, she had an interesting perspective on corporate and the balance of corporate life between being a mom, crushing in the corporate world, but not burning yourself out, and really being able to find this great work-life balance, which of course I fully admit that I have struggled with in my life. So Alicia is a transformational life and leadership coach. She's a speaker. She's also a mom of two wonderful gals. She's a former senior director in technology, and she spent 22 years building and leading teams in a Fortune 500 environment, rising to the ranks to senior leaderships. And during her career, she founded Women in Technology, a thriving leadership group designed to empower women to grow, connect, and challenge what's possible. And boy, does she talk about that in this podcast. And we're going to be going through her signature framework called the Inner Leadership Method. And we're going to be giving some really good nuggets here in relation to business, life balance, career, life balance. And also for those of you who don't have children like me, this is relevant. And also for those of you that are juggling taking care of your parents like me and figuring out life and career, this is so relevant for you. I spent so much of my career trying to really figure out who owned the business, that somehow I wasn't the owner, and figuring out how to actually spend time with my family when they really needed it. And it took me some years to do. And folks like Alicia are really helping you to be able to nail this down. And one of the biggest key components is learning about your values. And we're going to dive into that today. So let's introduce you to Alicia Ayala. Alicia Ayala, welcome to the Health Fix podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Jannine.
My goodness, this is fun because we met like 6 months ago at this fabulous thing called BBD Live, and here we are 6 months later hanging out. I'm super excited to really talk about something that in my practice a lot of folks are juggling with, but they might not like say it out loud to me because we're working on like hormones and we're working on gut stuff and things of that nature. But the business and how we work with our own businesses versus how we work with corporate, what's going on with the job, and then trying to figure out home life is a big deal for so many folks. And you have cracked the code on this. So we have to dive into all of those things. And I think the first thing I want to mention, and just to kind of get folks who are listening here into where we're going here, is like we are sandwiched as late 30s, early 40s to 50s-year-old women. We are sandwiched between the generation of like mom may not have worked, mom may have worked, and then we're looking at it going like, wait, we are so close to the Leave It to Beaver days. So we're seeing like all the responsibilities mom's supposed to have. And then we've got this modern, boss woman kind of thing going on. And we're like, how do we figure this out? Did you find that was such a thing for you? Do you find even, now in your head, do you see like you're constantly trying to tell your brain like, well, wait a minute, it's not 1950.
Yeah, I think so. First off, I can't believe, like, before I answer that, I can't believe it was 6 months ago. When you just said that, I was like, holy crap, that was 6 months ago. It's June.
I know.
So grateful that we met. So, I think the struggle that so many of us have is that what you just said, right? It's like what we see becomes what we think is possible or what we think is available for us. And I think when we have, in corporate specifically, there are, in my experience, there are really only a couple of what I like to call like archetypes that we see. And that is like the woman that doesn't have kids and she's working 80 hours a week. And then you have the working mom who can't, maybe, she's burning both ends, and that those are your only two choices, or be a stay-at-home mom. And I think in modern day, like today, I think there are more and more of us that like there is something happening inside of us, like at a soul level, that's like, no, this isn't like I want something different. But yet when we look, there are not, it just looks like there's not very many options. So then we're like, well, and especially like me, I was always like very high achieving. I wanted both. So for me, it was kind of like, well, wait, why can't I have both? It was very confusing, and I didn't see anybody doing it well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of what I see, unfortunately. And then I see the health things that come out from it. And how long, you were in 22 years, I saw on your website. How long into 22 years were you like, this is interesting. How do I figure this out between this work-life balance situation?
Well, I think it's interesting. Before you have kids, I think you're just, I like to say like as women, we have like a prescription that we're handed without knowing it's a prescription. And it's what we've been told, what we've seen maybe, which is go graduate, go to college, get a job, find a husband, get a home. And so like, we're like cruising through life, kind of checking off the boxes. And then at some point we have kids, and let's just say you've worked your butt off, like so many of us had, like checking off the list, right? Doing all the things. And then you get to this point where you're like, why don't I feel good in this life? And I think that's what happened for me. And that's what I see with a lot of the women that I work with. We're just checking off the boxes, but we've never like we put all this energy, blood, sweat, and tears in doing all those things, building our career. We didn't really have to think about like, how do we balance it or how do we do both? Because we were just sort of doing it. But then when you have kids, you have no choice, because at that point, right, you don't have as much time as you once had. So I think that's when, for a lot of women, there's this like point where you have to make a decision. And I think that's where many of us feel stuck. At least I did, and the women I work with, because I wanted both. I didn't want to say no to the career, the dreams that I had, but also I wanted to be there for my kids in a meaningful way. Not like I was there with them, but there were so many times I look back and I was there, but not really. They were getting the leftovers. I had no energy to be with them. So I think for me, it's just like, what was this? Building my career for 22 years. And I did figure this out like probably the last 3 years of my career. And then I was like, holy crap, like, how did I not figure this out sooner? But it took me a while, and it took me a lot of missed moments for me to recognize that. But I think like we hit this point where something inside of us is nudging us. But we look and it looks like there's no options. And then at some point we just miss too many moments and we're like, I've got to make a change.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, the concept of being present but not present is something that's brought up a lot. And I see it even though I don't have children. I see it like I'm hanging with my husband and he'll be like, can we put down the phone today? Can we not do an Instagram post or reel while, we are out? Do we need the B-roll? Like seriously? Like let's hang out. And it's like, wow, I realize how much I miss out on things.
Yeah, so it's interesting too when I left corporate. So I had figured this out, and this is like a really vulnerable thing that I'm going to share, but I had figured this out. I was just like, I was in this senior role. I figured out how to do both. I'm going to go help women do this, right? I literally, after I became an entrepreneur, started to repeat the same patterns that I had undone in corporate. And I was so frustrated and like beating myself up about it because I'm like, how could I figure it out over in this context? But now my context changes and I'm literally doing it again. But that's what growth is, right? We grow in one way and then it's like the next layer that I had to figure out, which was, no, how can I do it how do I carry it with me in all contexts, not just one?
Yes. Yes. And I think, that's incredibly important to think about because I think a lot of people will think like, I'm going to get out of corporate and I'm going to start my own business and it's going to be like amazing. And as we both know from how we met, the whole business journey, it is a growth process. Now, something I saw in one of your master classes, I believe it was the pillars. And if you don't have all the pillars in place in a certain context or take it to the next context, this is where you start repeating the same behaviors. Is that what you're talking about right now?
Yes. I mean, so the 3 pillars that you're mentioning are like the foundation that I stumbled upon like accidentally. And then it was like me going back trying to figure out like what did I do to figure this out? But it's like so many of us haven't paused to see or even ask ourselves. Because as women, we're always externally facing. We're always giving to somebody else. And we're never really, and I know you see this with health, because this is where a lot of women start to feel it in their health starts going. And that was me. That was one of my signs. I pushed through though. I was like, I'm going to sleep when I die. So I don't need to sleep now. But that is one of the things that I saw, but it's like pausing and knowing like, who am I right now in this moment? And what do I need in this season? So it's having this like really clear clarity. And I know this sounds super simplistic, but but really asking yourself and knowing, like even success metrics. Oftentimes we are grading ourselves on somebody else's path.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're judging our journey or what we want for our career or our business based on what Sarah, no offense, Sarah, if you're watching, but Sarah over here. But that's not the goal or the dream that we have. We shouldn't be judging ourselves on that, but we often do. And so knowing like I actually get to define what success means to me in this moment. So for me right now in business, it's very different than what it was when I was in corporate. And it's different because my kids are now 13 and 10 than when they were 4 and they were 7. So like we're being able to pause long enough, but we're in such a fast-paced society that we're always just like trying to run to the next thing, thinking that next thing is going to give us what we need, when it really is a pause and going more internal that gives us everything that we need. But it's the clarity. The second piece is self-trust. I work with a lot of women that are high achievers and they're like, I've lost my confidence. But what I've recognized, I used to say this same thing. I was like, but when people meet me, they're like, you're super confident. And every woman I talk to is very confident. So I was like, what is this? This is really interesting. So I realized though, it's self-trust. It's not confidence. And when we are going after Sarah's dream and not our own, we start to, and when we're taking steps, we start to erode our self-trust, not confidence, because we're going after things we don't actually want. And even if we achieve them, it doesn't feel good. And if we don't achieve them, we're beating ourselves up. So it's like we're losing these pieces of self-trust with our own self.
Mm.
And so we, getting clarity of who I am in this moment, what do I actually want? And then building that self-trust to go, no, I can go after that. And part of the self-trust too is being able to listen to this inner voice. So many of us, like I did, I'm just going to use the health example with my health. Like the inner voice was very loud
Yeah.
telling me, like, if you keep going this way, it's going to be a problem. And I'm like, shush, right? Didn't necessarily trust that voice because I had stopped listening. I'm going after this goal, which I realized looking back wasn't my own. And, and then the last piece is, can we embody that every day? How do we take, this is who I am in this moment. Here's what I want in this season. Here are my success metrics that are mine and mine alone. Build back the self-trust to go, I can listen to my inner voice. I can go after that. And then when you start going after that, if that voice comes up in your head, not the voice of the inner voice, but the voice that's like, oh, you can't do this. Or, your beliefs, your old beliefs coming up, being able to go, no, I know what truth is, and being able to move forward anyway. And so like through these 3 pillars, it really helps give women what they've told me, they feel lighter in going after the things that they actually want, not Sarah's dream, and being unapologetic about their own goals and being there for their family. But like also that guilt starts to dissolve of feeling guilty about, I wasn't with my kids today, because they're like, I am getting both, like the different parts of my life are being fulfilled because I am intentional on a regular basis.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And I think for, a lot of people, the inner voice is a very interesting thing. Like the inner voice, and I call it the parrot on my shoulder. Like or like my evil stepsister that I never had kind of thing. Whatever that is to you, it's that little like, no, you can't do it kind of blah, blah, blah in the back of your head. I think that for a lot of people, we shush it. And then even the deeper one, we shove it down more. I just talked, I think it was an Instagram post the other day about using heart rate variability to help me trust my intuition when it came to like, I pushed myself too far, because if the more we shush and we push it down, then what happens, at least what I've found, is like, okay, then the health symptoms will get bigger, like you noticed. And then also what I've also seen with myself and folks is that then I get these people saying to me, like, I don't know how to trust myself anymore. I'm not really sure if, what I feel is really like the problem. I'm not really sure if, let's say 2 glasses of wine really wear me out and I don't sleep better. And, the heart rate variability is like this big call out. Now, in terms of working with folks in your, aspect of working with, entrepreneurs and working with senior level executives, what kind of things do you talk about in terms of trying to help trust yourself? What kind of little tricks can you do? Is there like a little game that you can play to be like, wait, I can trust myself? I've always wondered this. And so I'm just going to ask you because my game is the HRV at this point.
Yeah, I love that because you're using something, that you can see that is like physical, like tangible. So I think, how we build self-trust back and being able to listen to that voice is like one of the most powerful things that we do every week is over 12 weeks is sort of a micro thing that helps you to build back that trust. But one of the things is like, I think, knowing what your core values are. So if we know what our core values are and what I encourage people, use your core values for decision making. A lot of times we do these things like core values, I'm just going to use, because I worked with people who are like, well, I know my core values. How do you use them with your decision making? Do you use them as a filter? Do you use them as a guide? Do you use them as you're deciding on your next career move? So, but like most people do things, and I know you see this in the health space as well, and then we like put them on the shelf. Like I did it. It's over here.
Yep.
We're not actively using it. It doesn't help you. So like, leveraging core values, right? If we're feeling, I feel like when something is coming up for somebody, I think one, we have to, anytime something is coming up, like, I think I need to make a job change. I hear this a lot from women because we think a job change,
Is going to
quitting
solve everything.
corporate is going to solve it. But it really is happening internally. So I think when we feel that, when that's coming up, I think a couple things we can do to build back self-trust and listen to ourselves. One is like flow journaling, like 10 to 12 minutes, and you're just writing. But like getting back to hearing yourself, I think is one of the key things. And but it's a muscle. If you do it one day, it's not going to help you. It's about doing it on a regular basis and being able to hear yourself again. And you will know when you're writing it and then you go back to read it if it's truth or not truth. So we know this. We try to override it with our mind to say, well, that's not real. So I think it's like building that muscle back. So I recommend and I love journaling on a regular basis to be able to recognize my own voice so that when a voice is coming up within me, I know whether it's my higher self, my actual higher self voice, or just my mind replaying an old belief that actually has nothing to do with anything. It's just a thought that I have thought on repeat. But core values is another thing that I just think is one of these super simple things that is often overlooked. So again, if you're going to make a decision, it's like, go back, does it align to your core values? And if it doesn't, then look at your core values to figure out like, well, what is actually coming up? I had a client do this and it was interesting. She came to me, she was like, I need to leave my job. I already know that. I just need your help leaving the job. But through our work, one of the most important things that we did was core values. And she was one that was like, I already know my core values. And I was like, okay, let's sit with these though and evaluate them with the decision that you're making right now of leaving. Because you should use these then to go find a new job and make sure that it's aligned to the manager, right? And what she realized, it wasn't the company, it wasn't her role. Her and her leader had a misalignment with core values. So every time her leader was actually asking her to go do something, it was triggering her. And she thought her only choice was to leave the company and quit the job because it was creating so much angst within her. And it really had to do with core values. So I think there's a lot of little things that we can do, but I think one of the biggest things is to get really, really quiet with ourselves and listen to what's coming up, journaling about it, and recognizing what is true for you in this moment and what's actually coming up. Because I do think all of these things that, we say or think internally are there for us, but we're so fast. We just want to we want to make a quick decision and we want to move forward. We don't listen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so quick to be like, oh, it's just a job, I'm out, and let it go. And I know I've done that in the past with multiple different things. I think one of the biggest things that folks may be thinking about right now, they might be thinking like, well, how do I figure out what my core values are? Do you use Gallup maybe? I'm trying to think of the different ones online to find them. What do you use to help with finding?
So I walk people through this in during the program, but I'm going to give you what I do. You can go out and search for, just go out online and search for core values. Find a list of core values. And then I'm going to give you 3 steps to actually finding them and using your intuition to do it.
Nice.
So your first step is you just set a timer for 3 minutes. You have your list and you're going to circle the ones that resonate with you.
Okay.
And they're typically going to be lists of 50 to 65, something like this. So you're just going to go through in 3 minutes to do that. Second round, you're going to cross out the ones that are okay, maybe this one isn't 100% right. And then in that round, you're going to do 1.5 minutes. And then you're going to do another round where you're going to do it where you keep cutting down the time and you get down to your last 5. But what I want, the 5 that really resonate with you. But what I want you to also pay attention to is what comes up while you're looking for your core values. Because it's really interesting. So much awareness comes up when people do this exercise. One, values that people want to have. And
Mhm.
there's like these things that come up that are holding them back related to this. So like, I want to be a leader. Why did I not like, or if you're trying to decide between two and you're like, no, I pay attention to the ones that you're closely holding on to and figure out why. Like, what meaning are you giving it? What is it telling you about who you are or where you are right now in this moment? But like the biggest thing about core values is like some of those things that come up for us are really signs of something deeper that's happening that can be really helpful in understanding our journey. But I think going through that process can help somebody figure out their core values very quickly. It doesn't need to take long. It really, you just five, 1.5, and then get down to your top five. Then you're using that as your decision filter. And then I would say make sure that you're not choosing them based on what who somebody has told you are. Don't choose them based on like your mom always told you need to be this type of person. That was what I did. I was
Me
like,
too.
oh, I kept like, um, and it's just and don't let it mean anything about who you are. So I did a talk on this group of like 90 people, and this guy stood up as I'm doing this talk and he's like, "Well, so I don't have family, so now I'm not a family person, huh?" And he was like so angry. So here's the thing, like just because family doesn't come up doesn't mean that you're not a family person, or you don't love your family. It's just like these are your guiding pillars for your soul on what feels good and what's aligned to you in your life. Again, it doesn't mean that you don't love your family, or if you don't choose love, it doesn't mean that you're a hateful person.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I could see how that happens though, because in the times that I've done this, and I've done this a couple times throughout my life, I've found that like, yeah, I always diverted in the beginning of doing this to like what I thought I was supposed to say, what my family kind of was like, that's what you're like, and I was like, oh my God, I don't even know what my own values are because I can't even think for myself. Now, this is a problem.
Yeah. And I think when you get to your top five, it helps to like they should make sense, and you can go like, my gosh, this makes so much sense. And I also think that when we look at them, we can see like, for example, one of mine is freedom. And I always struggled in corporate because if I worked for a leader that wanted me to like, I call them butt in seat leaders that like want you to be in your seat from like 8 to 5, and they judge your, performance based on this. Even in high level roles, it's so strange. But anyway, I struggled with those types of leaders because freedom is really important. Like I need autonomy to be creative, to work the way that I want to work. And I always struggled if I had a leader that did not give me that. And it makes a lot of sense because freedom is is one of my top five, values. So it really helped me to see like, oh my gosh, like it made so many things make sense.
Yeah. I mean, every time I've done it, eventually, once I've done it myself, not with the voice of other people, I
Yeah.
found that. And I found that, even looking in health, the values are important too, because I think a lot of people will go after health goals through the lens of different values that weren't theirs. And now, if we're looking at weight loss and we're looking at some of the deeper things of sticking with habits and routines and behaviors, we give up on them because we haven't tied them to our values.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, I can totally see that.
Yeah, it's something I've, if I can't, stress enough, this is one of the best ways to look inward is to do the the values and see, because it also tells us, and probably you can speak a little to this too, is like it helps us to interact with our partners as well if we know their values and we know ours. And leaders are leaders too, because that interaction.
Yes, I think really understanding your values, like one of the things I talk a lot about is this just like what you just said about health. Like again, values help us to center. It's like, it's a compass.
Mm.
So that we're not always leaning on externally. Well, I'm supposed to do this thing, like you said, like health related, or I'm supposed to do this thing. Values really allow you to center on what is true for me. Because again, we can't worry about other people, but also it helps us to understand our relationships. Like you said, a lot of my clients will do this. I did this with my husband. A lot of my clients will do this with their husbands. But also I've had clients do it with their teams to just better understand, like, if I understand my own values, share them with everybody, and I understand other people's values, I am able to meet people where they're at and understand them better. But I also think it's a great tool for when we're looking for a new role, or if we're even deciding, do I want to work with this person? Sometimes, we can feel, and again, this is where I feel like that inner voice is coming up, but we don't trust it. So
Mm-hmm.
we can feel like, I maybe don't want to work with this leader, but I don't know why. And we maybe think, I've done this where I'm like, this must be a me thing, so I should just push through. And then I maybe go work with that person and I'm like, oh my God, this is like a horrible relationship. This is not working. When if I could have looked at my values first, that helps, again, bringing us back into our own center to go, okay, what is my inner world telling me, versus just relying on, well, maybe this person is a great leader as other people have told us, but not the right leader for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And absolutely. Cause I think and I don't know how much this is a woman thing versus a societal thing, but we do feel like we have to morph if we want to go after this particular business. And that's, we want to be in this particular corporation with this particular leader because we look up to them. And then we get there and we're like, I have to be someone completely different
Yeah.
to roll in this. Do you see that with a lot of folks?
Yeah. I worked with it's smart, intelligent, highly qualified senior HR leader. And she was like, I'm not landing any of the roles that I want, and I was helping her while she was in transition between companies. And when we got to the values and she figured out her values, I was like, okay, I'm curious. Are you showing up as this person? And that is one of the things she recognized. She was not showing up as herself. She was morphing into who she thought they wanted. And I was like, but what if you just showed up as this person? Then they're going to hire you for who you are and you're going to find a better fit than if you tried to be somebody different. And no joke, the moment she switched, and she just started showing up as herself, she got a job. And I've talked to other people about this too. This other woman, she was very like comedy, humor was one of her top 5 values. But she was like, I can't bring that to an interview. And I'm like, why? And I'm like, you shouldn't make a joke about the person, but you can still bring humor. Like maybe don't, insult the boss, but if you were humorous. And the interesting thing, she came to this conclusion just in our own interaction, but our interaction, because she was trying to not be humorous, she came across really rigid, which was not who she was. She's like this very playful, fun person that you'd want to have on your team. And that is not at all how she came across. And I was like, and so she was able to see that. But I do think that happens. We do try to morph into the environments that we're in. We try to be, the things that we're told. I think about, you mentioned at the beginning, I think about, and I hate this term, but like boss babe. Right.
Yeah.
When I first came into, entrepreneurship, I'm like, so boss babe is like my option. Like, I don't even know what that means. But like, I personally don't resonate with that. So then if I'm trying to be boss babe, I'm not being me, and is not who I am. I am much more like, I want to be with my kids. I want to run a business. I want to help women. Like, that's it. I don't want to be an influencer. I'm just here to help other women struggle less than I did, but not trying to morph into being something else. But in entrepreneurship, I feel like it's the same too. You have like these couple of archetypes that we see, but there are so many other options. And I think that's where, when you know yourself, when you know what your values are, you can take ownership and show up as you.
I think it's so important because yes, that was what came to my head was that boss babe thing. But I'm like, I'm the whole like, I got you, boo thing. I'm like, so not me.
Yeah.
That's just, it makes me laugh. But at the same time, one of the things that I'm hearing from a lot of women who have maybe been out of the field for a while, like maybe they did the corporate game for a little bit, had some kids, took a pause, right? And then now they're trying to get back in. One of the things that I keep hearing, and even for folks who are in their late 50s and early 60s and some in the mid 60s and don't want to necessarily retire, I'm hearing that it's kind of harder to figure out how to get back in the game or how to, really navigate a corporate position these days. And, I'm not going to lie, I do think that there is a little bit of ageism that is happening. But I think, this concept of being yourself is so much more important now. I
Yeah, I
think it
agree.
is.
Like, so I think it's interesting. So for the people that are watching that this is an issue, I just want to share, I am also part of an executive team, like transition services team. And at the company that I consult with, it's all like they're executives in transition or people coming back into the field. And
Mhm.
so one of the things that I have heard repeatedly and what I have seen that actually works is like it, and it's like going back old school. It's networking. It's relationship building. And what you just said though, like being very, authentic and real and just being yourself. I think that there are lots of people who would hire somebody coming back into the workforce, but not if, but like again, you have to own all of your skills, right? And I think sometimes we get in our heads about, well, I imagine, and I've worked with companies as well because I really believe in moms coming back into the workforce. I'm a big advocate of moms coming back into the workforce. Moms should always be hired because they are so probably overly qualified for any role because can multitask, they are operationally efficient, they are just like there's a million things I could say. But I'm a big advocate of that. But I think being able to translate, like, here's what I did before, there's probably things they did while they were at home with the kids that translates to a new role that they're looking for. And then I think just that relationship building and the networking. So the women that I work with right now in this, at this company, there is, and I've heard this, there is some ageism that happens for sure. I know we'd all love to believe that that doesn't happen, but I also think when we show up ourselves, when we're aligned to what we actually want versus again going after Sarah's dream, or what we think we're supposed to do, I think that things start to happen for us and things start to come together. I think networking, genuine networking, like you start reaching out to people that you knew before. And you're not asking for anything, you're just looking to reconnect and start making those connections again. People genuinely want to help.
I agree. I agree. It's great advice because I think, what I've noticed anyway, and you've probably seen this too with all the AI, with all the online stuff and especially since the pandemic times, I think we really are craving human like
Yes.
connection and chatting with other folks instead of being like some, person that's just stuck behind the screen. I mean, I definitely I still go to Washington for that reason. I will go see my people every quarter when I can so that I have that connection. And I think a lot of people do that because, it's important. And so, I just hear a lot of women in a stage of life right now where they are struggling a little bit with getting back into the game. Or unfortunately, another thing that happens too is a lot of folks need to stay working longer at this point.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and now it's like, how do we feel good? How do we not compromise our health? How do we stay on top of all these things? And, definitely the values. Like I couldn't say enough about that. Now, you have a method, your inner leadership method, and I know the pillars are part of this. What other things can we enlighten folks about that they can start pondering a little bit to help with, fulfillment in their career and also not let it take over their health because we know how this goes if we don't get on top of it.
One of the biggest things that I see and hear, and one of my biggest issues was this, like, and I think it's the overachiever, the high performer.
Mhm.
We'll call it the high performer trap, is like, I need to say yes to everything. I need to give 150% as it relates to work. And I always need to be giving. And then when I do that, I will get some prize, right? Like we, we believe like there's a promotion at the end of this, or there's, you know, but the promotions are not given to the person who works 150%. They're just not. The promotion is given to the person that is leading, that is showing that they add value, and the person that shows up a certain way. And I think when you are this person who is giving 150%, you're probably not taking care of yourself. You might show up not as a leader, even though you're trying to be. You might be showing up as like, I am this overwhelmed individual who's just doing a lot but you can count on me, right? And it does a couple of things. One, I think you're giving, and this happened to me, and I see this so much. We get resentful of the company. We get resentful of the people we work with. And we're like, why aren't they noticing me? But this is not a company problem. And I don't mean to be a jerk here. This is not a company problem. This is not a husband problem. I used to get really angry with my husband, like, why does he have it so easy? It was a me problem because I couldn't say no. I gave 150%, and I thought that it was going to result in a promotion. And what changed for me was I had this moment that was devastating that still sticks with me today, where I'm leaving for an executive meeting. I've got my 2 kids in tow, 4 and 7-year-old. It's a Minnesota winter, so we're getting all geared up. So we're kind of sweaty. It's a stressful moment. I'm like, oh my gosh, we have to get out at this exact moment. We get into the car. 7-year-old gets herself in. The 4-year-old, I go to put her in the car seat, and she arches her back, and she will not get in. And she's screaming at the top of her lungs. And this goes on. I mean, it felt like it was 30 minutes. It was probably 2. And in this like stressful moment, I like swore at her. And she stops wide-eyed. And she looks at me, puts her lip out, and she starts crying. But now it's a different cry. She knows I've called her a bad name. And I just remember holding her to me and being like, no executive meeting, no meeting is worth this. And it was in that moment that I was like, I have to figure this out. I want to do both, and I want to do it better. And one of the key things that I did was this, what I had said earlier, like redefining your success metrics. All of my success metrics were really tied up in how much can I work? What promotion can I get next? What am I going to get? None of it, and sadly, looking back, none of it was around how much time am I spending with my kids? How happy am I? How is my health? Like, it was just this one pillar. And I kept thinking, and I did, like, I will rest when I die and I'll figure out these other things later, right? But in that moment, it forced me to change. And one of the things, like, I redefined my success metrics, and it was like, no, I want to be with my kids when I'm with my kids. Like, that was success for me. I want to have breakfast with them 2 days a week and not feel stressed. I want to come home, I'm going to put my phone away, and I will have this much time 1 day a week that I can open my laptop after they go to bed. It was like these types of things. I want to work out 3 days a week, right? It's like, I was like, and then I did this for the next 6 months. I stopped saying yes to everything. Like, there's more to it, but the craziest thing happened, which I never saw coming. 6 months later, I got promoted to a senior director. Because guess what? When I put myself, like, just prioritize myself just a little bit and my family and the things that I loved, I was happier and I showed up as a better leader, and it was noticed. And then a year and a half after that, I was being promoted to VP. So working all these hours is not what equates to getting a promotion.
It's all part of your inner leadership method. So I think it's,
thank you. Yes. So redefining success. I mean, boundaries, understanding where we're saying yes when we really I like resentful yeses. We say yes, but we feel resentment. I think paying attention to those. And I think this comes up too in marriage. Right? When we keep saying yes if our husbands are going out golfing, but we really mean no, like, no, I need a day, and like, where are we having those resentful yeses that we actually mean no? Then we should say no. Because if we say yes, we're automatically then saying no to something else that is actually something that we need. And so I think paying attention to those are really important. I think the other thing that we talk a lot about is language patterns. So paying attention to our own language patterns, like, what are the things that you're thinking the most often? Because that is what's creating your life. And if you're thinking the most often, like, I hate my career, my life sucks, then you need to focus there. Like, focus on, like, does your career really suck? Or is it like, I tell people, and I tell my kids this too, to get really clear, is it that the job sucks? Or is it something different? Is it like, because most of the time when I have people start breaking this down, it isn't the job that sucks. It's like I don't like that my boss calls me into his office at 4 p.m. at the end of the day. Let's just say, as an example. Okay, well then now that you know what it actually is, and it's not the job, it's this one thing your boss does, maybe you could have a conversation with him, And then what if you have that conversation and suddenly he's like, oh, well, you're always here at that time. I thought it worked better for you. Like, this is a real example. Or I had another client who was like, my job is frustrating. They won't promote me and they never let me have lunch. I was like, they never let you have lunch? Like, what is this? And this was a her thing. She wouldn't let herself have lunch. No
Oh
joke.
my gosh.
She was not allowing herself to eat because she felt guilty that she wasn't doing enough. So it's like we create these things, and when we start peeling back, is it the job that sucks? Or is it that you're not getting a promotion because your boss hates you? Or is it actually you're not getting a promotion because you're not leading, and the first person you have to lead is yourself,
Oh my gosh, yes.
And I
Yes.
think the other big thing that we do is, and this is so hard for women to do, what is your 1-year dream? What is your 5-year dream? And it's so crazy because when I have women write this down, well, one, they have the hardest time doing this. They're like, well, when you say dream, is it like, what kind of dream are we talking about? I'm like, no, whatever you would want for your life. But their brain kicks on and they start holding themselves back. And the coolest thing though happens when we get past the noise and it's like, no, write down. If you could do anything with your life, and I'm not talking you're saying you're going to be an astronaut, but I'm talking about real things that you want to do, right? I have a client that wanted to grow her business and she wanted to be a certain type of trainer but she had to go get the certification, but she was like, I don't know, it's too big. And I'm like, for who? Who is it to? Who told you that, right? So I was like, write it down. Don't edit yourself. Literally, it's you and yourself, and you're editing yourself. Nobody is judging this or grading it. So she writes it all down, 1 year, 5-year. We review it, but it was hard. And then I'm like, okay, now envision this. And the craziest thing, and you know this because I know you've done some of this work too, here we are, her 5-year goal. We are 6 months into working together. She's literally going after this train. It fell into her lap that this exact thing that she wanted, somebody reached out to her and gave her an opportunity. And now she's scared because she's like, well, this was on my 5-year list. And she's like, it's not even a year. Am I ready? Of course you are. Of course you are.
Gosh.
But we stop dreaming. We stop seeing what is possible. So I would say that is the other thing in our leadership. What the best leaders at all the big companies do, they have a vision for where the company's going. The best entrepreneurs, they have a vision for the business. We can do the same exact thing with our own life. What is the vision for your life? And then let's build back self-trust and let's go create that. Because it's 100% possible.
I love that you say that it's 100% possible, and with such conviction, because so many people, I'll say these things and they'll be like, I don't know, because we've just gotten to the point where we went on autopilot. We've resigned ourselves to this is the way it's going to be. There's nothing I can do. I hear this so often from clients and I'm like, oh my gosh, no wonder you don't feel good. You've basically pigeonholed yourself into a corner where you don't see a way out. And I just love that you're saying that. And I love that people just more and more people are saying it. So I'm like, okay, guys, it must be true.
It is. And I know this because I've done it so many times in my life where sure, I'm not saying I'm immune to stuff comes up all the time. But what happens is I have tools where I'm like, I know what's happening in my brain. I see what's going on. And I give women these same tools. The other thing I wanted to say about that, though, is that there's 3 big things that we think are things that we see in other people that we find inspirational. And we're like, oh, that person, they did that. They can do that. But there's 3 big things I think that we see or that other people do that inspire us that we think are things that are skills that only this person has, but they are skills that are muscles. So they literally just are something that we can do. We just have to do it once and then repeat it. But those things are, the first one I would say is awareness. This sounds so silly. Like, this is a skill, this is a tool. Every single person, though, that decided to make a change or do something in their life, the first thing that they had to do was become aware of, what do I want? What's getting in my way? What are my habits, my patterns? And then, like, right, like they had to become aware. So
Mhm.
that is the first thing, and that is a muscle. And this is like something we practice all the time because it's easy to be unaware, and we are unaware when we're in autopilot. We're unaware when we're constantly in noise because we can't hear ourselves. And the noise is so real with our phones, with our computers, with constantly working, with the fast-paced lifestyle, right? So it's like peeling some of those things back, even carving out a little bit of time so we can create an environment that allows for awareness. But the second thing is, I think, taking ownership. We have like the moment we take ownership and this is again part of inner leadership, taking ownership of our life. Like, I get to decide. I get to choose. And then the third one is like getting really good at making decisions. So I think part of I hear a lot of people say, like, I'm stuck. We're not stuck. When you say you're stuck, there is this one thing that's happening, and that's you don't want to make a decision. And decisions become easier. Again, it's a muscle. You
Mhm.
have to make a decision and go down a path that maybe is the wrong path, but you'll learn something and then you get better at making decisions. We have to make decisions quickly and then act on them. And those are all skills that we can develop, but those are like when you see somebody who inspires you, they did those three things.
Nice. So good. So good to ponder on that. And I think, whether someone's struggling with their health or career, this is all relevant. This is really about getting to know our inner self and your inner leadership method. I mean, this is like we can lead ourselves into good health. We can also lead ourselves into bad health. We can, lead ourselves into great careers and fulfilled careers on our terms. And then we can lead ourselves into corners, basically, you know?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and this is just a great way to really look at life. So I would love for you to talk about your one-on-one coaching, and also you've got this new coaching cohort coming up here in July. So for those of you who are listening to this, you got about a month because it's June of 2026. And is it Her Alchemy? Is that what you're calling
For
it? Or
alchemy. Yes.
okay, tell us more.
Yeah, so my one-on-one is a 6-month container, and this is for somebody that is really looking for more, like, we work together on a regular basis. It's one-on-one. We're going deeper on everything. You get that one-on-one attention on, if you're contemplating a career shift, if you're contemplating, I'm ready, like I've had kids. I'm ready for that next growth move, and I want somebody to be my partner in helping me get there. That is what the one-on-one coaching really helps you to do. And you still get Her Alchemy. Her Alchemy is my signature program. And the inner leadership method is a part of that, but we walk through that, but together. And then you also get, it's 3 months of Her Alchemy and doing that program together, and then 3 months of lots of integration so that you learn these things, and then it's 3 months of you're out in the wild, and we're working together as you run into things. This is a great way to propel your career, help with job transition if you're contemplating a new shift. The Her Alchemy group coaching, which launches in a month or opens in a month, so that the next cohort will start. This is 12 weeks of the Her Alchemy content, and you're doing this with a small cohort of other women. So there's no one-on-one, but you get the community. You get a private WhatsApp group where I'm in there, coaching in between sessions, and we meet weekly. You meet other women that are going through the same things you're going through, and you have a community to lean on. I think the coolest thing that I've seen with the group is so often we feel like we are alone in our journey. And the coolest thing is watching these women connect and go, oh my gosh, you feel that same way? Me too. And they're like, I found it's good. Not that we want other people to suffer, because we don't, right? But it's good to know, like, this is just not a me thing. There are other people going through this, and we get to do it together. So we go through this 12 weeks, and working through visioning, working through core values, learning our language patterns and how to overcome them, overcoming our biggest fear stories, the things that we all have a story that prevents us from moving forward. And it's like, how do we overcome that and really dissolve that so that that is not something that keeps us stuck? And we do these micro things over 12 weeks. And at the end, I hear it from every single woman that I work with, which is, I feel lighter. I'm unapologetic about the things that I want in my life. And the coolest thing, like there is this self-trust and this like, I literally can make choices and go after what I want in my life. And it's beautiful.
And this is what I want for so many people, because I do feel like for a lot of the health issues, for a lot of the hormones that like I give the hormones, we try to balance the hormones, and there's just some little things that just seem outstanding. I feel like if we got the career dialed in, boom, all that stuff goes away. That is how I look at it.
You know what? I 100% agree because I've seen this with myself. The hormones. I had hormone issues. I had thyroid issues. My hair was falling out. When I started making decisions that were aligned to what I actually wanted versus I was fighting my inner world, it was amazing how many of those things resolved.
I've no doubt. I've seen it in myself too. And I think that if we can leave anything for the end of this podcast, it's that there's potential for your health and your career, and you can weave it into one. And Alicia has some seriously good help for you here. Now, tell everybody your website, like socials, so we can get a hold of that as well.
Yes. So I'm primarily on LinkedIn and I'm at It's Alicia Ayala. And then I'm also on Instagram and my website is aliciaayala.com. And you can find me there.
Excellent. Of course, we'll have everything in the podcast notes down below at drjkrauseND.com. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram, because I will be having little short snippets from this podcast in addition to a post. And then if you're watching on YouTube, there are going to be lots of fun YouTube shorts too that you can catch and share with your friends that might be struggling in this area as well. Alicia, thank you so much for coming on. I sincerely appreciate it.
Jannine, I am so thankful that we met, and thank you for having me today. I love chatting with you. So this was fun.
Gosh, no doubt this will not be the last one that we do together. Thanks again. Hey, fellow health junkie, thanks for listening to the Health Fix podcast. If you enjoyed tuning in, please help support me to get the word out about the podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review, and just get that word out. Thanks again for listening.